Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another Mortal Kombat video. Now, due to your positive reception from last week's video that I did make on Baraka, I've decided that from the positive reception that you guys have clearly given me, I will now be making this a series on my channel. And as many of you have requested down in the comments below, as I did so happen to mention him in that video, today I will be talking about Reptile and what kind of went wrong with the character. Now, first off, to really talk about this character, let's go to the very beginning. I kind of understand how this character kind of started in this universe. Well, Reptile himself is actually a Zarteran, a very ancient reptilian race in the Mortal Kombat universe. Although they were somewhat passive people, the race as a whole seems to suffer from the worst luck possible, because after the realms were created and the elder gods and gods asserted their position as protectors, a war broke out among the gods when Shinnok turned against his brothers and wanted to rule the realms through his own ideal, ones that understandably did clash with what an elder god should stand for, and this would lead to numerous clashes and battles all across the realms. But the final and most devastating battle happened to occur near the Zarteran's home. Now, although Shinnok was defeated, the destruction the battle would cause had robbed the Zarterans of their home, so they were forced to leave and try and make a new home for themselves, and they were successful in doing this, as they somewhat created their own realm known as Zartera. However, this peace would not last very long at all, because around this time, the Dragon King Onaga had fallen, and Shao Kahn had asserted himself as the head of Outworld, and thus began his conquest of all of the realms, and the Zarterans were some of the very first victims of Shao Kahn's conquest. Now, the devastation that was caused towards the Saurian race was much more significant in, say, something like Edenia. Although the realm was conquered and many of the people were killed, the race was at least scattered across the realms and stayed out of the public eye. But the Zarterans were nowhere near as fortunate. The realm of Zartera was completely annihilated before it was even given the opportunity to flourish. Many of the Saurians were killed off, only leaving 2/3 in the original timeline and seemingly 1 in the current timeline, as we're yet to hear of anything regarding Chameleon. So in terms of backstory, Reptile has really had it kind of rough, but it's not entirely gloom and doom, because for one, he actually became a secret boss in the original Mortal Kombat game, which is always a nice addition, and he did at one point become the host for the Dragon King. But as far as highlights go, that's really kind of where it stops. Everything after his debut kind of goes downhill, and unlike Baraka, who I'd mentioned got kind of dragged down by his race, as the Tarkatans themselves aren't particularly smart, Reptile was written in such a way that he'd somewhat follow a similar suit. You see, after his realm fell into the hands of Shao Kahn, he'd be recruited into Shao Kahn's army, and seemingly developed Stockholm Syndrome. Now, for those of you who don't really know what this is, it's when someone is kidnapped and falls in love with their kidnapper, and I guess up to a certain extent this can be applied to Reptile, but here are where things get very interesting. This more or less becomes Reptile's entire story arc. As you see, after Shao Kahn is defeated, Reptile was written in such a way that he couldn't be independent by himself, as they would incorporate the idea of him becoming more reptilian. Now, although visually this was very interesting in terms of design, and in many ways the somewhat evolution of this character, it would in fact lead up to the slow decline of, as you see, his degenerative state slowly led to him losing knowledge of who he kind of was as an individual. We first saw this when he was put under Shao Kahn's heel, but after the 4th installment in the series, without a master telling him what to do, he would in fact actively travel around and try to find someone to kind of command him, and a character that can't take charge of who he kind of is slowly does tread more into the realm of just average henchmen. Note that he didn't kind of already serve that purpose to kind of be an antagonist and obstacle in the series, but the second they need to go and find a master in order to tell them what to do, that character kind of loses a lot of integrity and, well, kind of a lot of character in general. Now, yes, he did become the host for the Dragon King, so he does get some brownie points, but no one ever really looked at Onaga and said, that's Reptile under there. We just saw Onaga as Onaga, and when Reptile was separated from Onaga, he gained no traits from the Dragon King. He was back to being just Reptile once again. So in the original timeline, the whole idea of him becoming a reptile definitely does sound very interesting on paper, but it ultimately did serve as quite a detriment to the character, because we do see in the reboot that they just kind of throw this idea away and immediately assert Reptile in his reptilian form, and that is really as far as it goes. In terms of character development, Reptile in the reboot doesn't have kind of any. He serves Shao Kahn and he serves Kotal Kahn for the better of Outworld. That is really as far as it does go. In terms of arcade ladder endings, the two we've seen in the reboot have been very similar. A resurgence in the Saurian race. However, since his arcade ladder ending, and it's one that doesn't tie into any other, we know that it will most likely never become canon. So unfortunately, it seems like what happened to Reptile in the original timeline somewhat serves as a bit of a crutch for him now, especially when we take into account that he's no longer seen as the prime candidate for the Dragon King. Instead, the host idea seemingly does fall down to Goro. Now, it's not entirely his fault in the reboot, as you see the games have drastically changed from their previous counterparts, taking on more of a film-esque role and focusing more on the hero characters, and obviously most recently the new characters. But that also does somewhat mean that the likelihood of Reptile ever being involved with any form of main plotline story arc is now kind of gone. The character kind of did have his opportunity to shine, but now with the limelight kind of focusing on newer characters, it seems like his time may have passed. But yeah, that's kind of it for this video, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed it, as you guys really did enjoy last week's video on Baraka, and the Mortal Kombat universe has a plethora of characters that kind of have gone underdeveloped over the years. So down in the comments below, let me know who else you'd like to hear me talk about, as I don't actually have anyone else in mind, at least no one in particular, so your feedback would be deeply appreciated for next week's video. But yeah, that's kind of it for now, guys. Now, if possible, before this video does wrap up, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel since YouTube's ad system is broken as hell, so by giving it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And if you want to go that extra step, we also have a Patreon set up, and a link for it will be down in the description below. Anyway, guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.